Greetings and welcome to What's New in iOS 12, a video tutorial from themacu.com. In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to use the new features, apps, and other changes available for both the iPhone and iPad in iOS 12. For more general lessons on how to use your iPhone and iPad, look for the iOS 12 Core Concepts tutorial to arrive in October of 2018. With that, let's get started with a look at the under-the-hood performance improvements coming in iOS 12. The first item in our iOS 12 What's New tutorial isn't a fancy new feature that you need to learn about. It's simply that any device that can run iOS 12 will be faster with it than with iOS 10 or iOS 11. iOS 12 can be installed on devices as old as the iPhone 5S, the iPad Mini 2, or iPad Air. Basically, that means that any iOS device introduced since 2013 can run iOS 12 and should be faster on iOS 12 than iOS 11. According to Apple, swiping over to access the camera from the lock screen is going to work up to 70% faster. The keyboard is going to be ready for typing up to 50% faster, and just about any app is going to launch quicker on iOS 12 than iOS 11. These boosts probably won't be blatantly obvious when you're using your device, but over the life of your device, a half second here and there can save a lot of time. So if you're hesitating to upgrade an older device to iOS 12, you probably shouldn't be, because that device is going to be faster with the latest version of iOS than with whatever it's currently running. I don't have two of the same iOS models to do a comparison with, but if you want to see the difference, head over to YouTube and do a search for iOS 11 versus iOS 12. With the release of the iPhone X and the removal of the home button on that device, Apple had to come up with some multi-touch gestures to replace what could be done with the home button. In iOS 12, these gestures will now work on any iPad, with a home button or not. Most likely in the fall of 2018, Apple's going to release new iPad Pros that don't have a home button, which is going to require gestures to access things like the app switcher and control center. So here on my iPad with a home button, we can now swipe up, stop, then release to bring up the app switcher. From here I can scroll over to view all the open apps. Tap to jump into one. From within an app, we can still bring up the dock with a short swipe up from the bottom. To get to the app switcher from within an app, we need to swipe up about halfway up the display, stop, and release. Swipe up on an app here in Control Center to close it. When you're in an app, swipe up and over, sort of in an arc, to jump into the next open app without viewing the app switcher. We can do this from left to right or right to left to move in either direction. Double pressing the home button in iOS 12 is still going to bring up the app switcher. But notice that we don't have Control Center available here in the app switcher. With iOS 11 on an iPad, Control Center would appear on the right side of the app switcher. Now to view Control Center on any iPad in iOS 12, we need to swipe down from the upper right corner, just as it's done on the iPhone X. So these gestures are just preparing us for a future without a home button on either our iPhones or iPads. So it's a good idea to get used to them now. Thanks for watching the tutorial. For many more tutorials on how to use your Apple devices and software, head to themacu.com. There you can view in-depth video tutorials on Mac and iOS, Safari, Mail, iTunes, iMovie, the Photos app, the Files app for iOS, and many, many more. When starting the free trial, use the code TUBE20 to save 20% off your membership. It's super affordable, and you can watch on the macu.com or using the TMU Tutorials app for Mac or iOS. Thanks again, and now back to the tutorial. On the iPhone X and iOS 11, to close an app from the app switcher, we would need to tap and hold on one of the app cards for a second, which would then bring up these delete buttons. This was kind of odd because this was the only device that this needed to be done on. Well, now in iOS 12, there's no need to tap and hold for the delete buttons to appear. Just swipe up on an app here, and it's going to close. So this now works the same way on any iOS device, iPad or iPhone, and whether it has a home button or not. But remember, closing apps like this is not something that needs to be done to keep your device running at its peak performance or to save battery life. Closing apps in here is good when an app is frozen or not responding, or when you just want to declutter the app switcher and reduce the amount of app cards that you see in here. Group notifications is a great new feature in iOS 12 that probably should have been implemented a while back. So let's start on the lock screen. I have notifications on the iPhone lock screen from Mail, the News app, and the new Screen Time app. Notice that the Mail and News notifications have more notifications displayed behind the top one. So these are group notifications that no longer take up the entire display or more with those notifications from a single app. Below the summary of each top notification, it lets me know how many more there are in the group notification. Single tap to expand and view all the notifications in the group. Then tap on one of the single notifications, and I need to unlock the phone to view this in Mail. Tap and hold on the notification to interact with it. In this case, I can either trash the email or mark it as read. Swipe left for Manage, View, and Clear buttons. And tap the Show Less button up here to return to the group notification. Swipe left on a group notification, and we can quickly clear all the notifications for the Mail app. Tapping View is going to let me see the top notification. Tap Manage, and we can choose to deliver notifications from Mail quietly, or turn notifications from Mail completely off, from right here on the lock screen. Deliver quietly will turn off lock screen and banner alerts, along with sounds, and badges on the app icon. We'll look a little bit more at this coming up. Finally, tap Settings here, and I then need to unlock the phone to jump into notification settings for Mail. Everything we just did on the lock screen will work the same way in Notification Center. So when I unlock the phone and then swipe down to view Notification Center, the group notifications appear, and I can view or manage them just as I did on the lock screen. So now let's turn on Deliver Quietly for Mail. If we then jump into notification settings for Mail, we can see that only the Notification Center alert is on. The lock screen and banner alerts are off, along with sounds and badges. So this can be a good option for apps that you want to get notifications from, but you don't need them to always appear in front of you with alerts. Deliver Quietly lets you control when you see the notification by going into Notification Center to view it. So that's group notifications, one of the best and most needed new features in iOS 12. iOS 12 comes with a new app called Measure that will use your device's camera, accelerometer, and other sensors to measure the length of straight lines on a surface. With the Measure app open, as I approach this picture frame, it's going to recognize the rectangular surface with this yellow box. As the camera moves, it also senses the rectangle of the print within the frame for a second, but then comes back to the overall frame. To get the measurements for this frame, I just need to tap on the yellow box, and there's the length and width of the frame. The Measure app says it's 16.5 inches wide and 20.5 inches high. The actual measurements when taken with a tape measure are closer to 17 and 21 inches. So the Measure app isn't something you want to use for exact measurements, but it can be a really quick way to get approximate dimensions. Let's tap Clear to start over, and now I'm going to measure the diagonal of the frame. This won't be done automatically. I'm going to find the top right corner with this dot on my display, and then tap the Add button below. That places a point in that location and begins the measurement. Move to the lower left corner, and I'll tap Add again to lock the diagonal, which comes to 26 inches. Tap on the 26-inch measurement here, and a panel pops up with the measurement in both inches and centimeters, along with a copy button. Tap on this, and then I could then paste this number into a note, an email, or any other document. Tap on the shutter button here in the lower right to take a screenshot of the current measurement. Now let's try with another object. I'm going to measure the width of this shelf by adding a point at the very left edge and then over on the right edge. Notice though that the entire object doesn't need to be in the frame at first to get a measurement. That gives me 3 feet 4 inches, which is about an inch off of the true measurement. In my first test of this, when I wasn't recording, the Measure app got this spot on at 3 feet 5 inches. So results are going to vary slightly. In this last example, notice I'm using the Measure app in landscape orientation. We're outside measuring this concrete pad, and I want to get all 4 sides. So I'm going to start with a point at the top left, then move down and tap Add to set that first line. I then want to tap Add again on that same point to start the next line. The iPhone will snap to a point that's already there, sort of magnetically, so it's easy to locate. And if you ever place a point in the wrong location, there's an undo button here in the lower left. I'll add that next line, tap, and then tap again to start another line. And do the same thing one more time up here. Notice how the dot will snap back to the last point that I added. One more tap on the Add button, and I have all 4 sides. If I want, I could then add the diagonal measurement here too. This is super quick because the point snaps to each corner. Next, I'll take a screenshot to save the measurements. So that's the new Measure app, which also now contains the level, which used to be included in the Compass app. The Compass app remains, but the level has moved into the Measure app. Screen time is a new iOS setting that lets you monitor and control how much you or your kids are using their devices. Screen time exists within the Settings app, and when I open it, it immediately lets me know how much time I've spent on my devices so far today. Tap here for more details. We can view this information just for today or the last 7 days. Below is a graph of our usage by hour or by day depending on the selection above. Below that we can see what apps have been used the most and the total time spent in them. Or we can break this down by category. So if you or a child are spending too much time on social networking apps or playing games, that can be monitored here. Screen time even keeps track of each time you pick up your device and when those pickups occur. We can also see how many notifications are coming in and from which apps. Tap on an app here to adjust its notification settings. Notice that I'm currently viewing this data for all my iOS devices. Tap Devices up here, and I can view every iPhone or iPad associated with my iCloud account. I could then choose just to view the data for only my iPhone or only my iPad. Back out on the main screen time page, I can set up a downtime period. When downtime is active, during whatever period I set here, my devices will first give me a downtime alert, and after that prevent me from using most of the apps on the device, unless I override it with a passcode. This can be a good way to regulate your own usage of your iPhone or iPad when you should be trying to get to sleep. Next, we have app limits. This will let us set up a maximum amount of time that a certain category of app can be used each day. So I'll select Games here, and then tap Add. I'll add a 1-hour limit for games, but I'm going to double that on weekends by tapping the Customize Days option here. Tap Edit Apps, and I could then add another app category to this limit. By default, the phone, messages, FaceTime, and Maps apps are always allowed. All but the phone app can be removed from the always allowed list. In the content and privacy restrictions, which will require a screen time specific passcode to be set up, we can set up very specific rules for what can be used or viewed on this device. In content restrictions, we can only allow podcasts, music, and news with clean content to be viewed. We can also do this with web content, which will either try to limit adult websites, or you can select only websites that are allowed. Tap Add Website to customize this list. Swipe left to remove a website from the allowed websites list. So with a screen time passcode set up that only you know, a child using this device can be limited as to what apps they're using and when, and for how long. They can also be allowed to only view certain content and websites that you approve. If you use family sharing, kids' screen time settings can be monitored and controlled from the head of the family's device. So, screen time can be a very powerful new tool for parents. For devices that support Face ID, iOS 12 has some new Animoji and a Memoji feature, which lets you design a personalized Animoji. So from here in the Messages app, I'm going to tap on the Animoji app button here. The first item here is a Memoji that I've already built. Swipe over to view all the available Animojis, including new ones like the T-Rex and Chinese Dragon. Swipe all the way back to the left, and we have a new Memoji button, which brings us into a full screen interface for custom building a Memoji. There's a huge variety of options here, which make it possible to create a pretty specific look. You can create a Memoji that looks as much like you as possible, or just how you want to look. Across the top here are 10 categories in which we can set shapes, colors, and other options for different facial features. Here in the skin settings, we can choose a color and tone, and decide if we want freckles. Swipe over to choose a hairstyle, and even add highlights if you please. In head shape, we can choose an age and chin. Next, we can set an eye color. Tap on this last button to view more color options. When you pick a color, use the slider below to adjust its tone. Below this, we can pick an eye shape. Next, we have eyebrow color and shape options. Then in nose and lips, we can choose any lip color, just like with the eyes. In ear settings, pick a size, and if you like, you can add some earrings. Under facial hair, we can adjust sideburns, along with selecting a mustache and beard style and color. Finally, we have eyewear and headwear, in case you want to accessorize your Memoji. Tap Done, and the custom emoji is saved. It can then be used in Messages or FaceTime. In iOS 12, tongues are detected for Memoji and Animoji. So if I stick out my tongue, it's displayed here in the app. Eye rolls can also now be detected in iOS 12. We've always been able to take a quick photo or video and send it without needing to leave the Messages app. Now when we tap the camera icon while composing a message, we also get this new Effects button. Tap here and we get several effects options, including Animoji, which we're going to look at last, filters, text, animated shapes, and all the stickers apps that I've previously added in Messages. So let's start with a sticker. I'll use these American Airlines stickers. Swipe up to browse them in full screen, then tap to place a sticker. Now I can tap and drag to move it around, use a two-finger pinch or spread to enlarge or shrink the sticker, and rotate two fingers on the display to rotate the sticker. Tap the X here to close the stickers, and then tap the shutter to take the photo with the sticker in it. Once this photo is taken, I can still add more effects to it. But we also get an edit button to adjust the image brightness and color, or we can use this markup button to draw directly on the photo. Tap Save, and then to send it, we can either tap the blue button here to send it right away, or tap Done, and the image with the effects is loaded into the message, but I can still add a comment before sending. Now let's add an animated shape, text, and filter all to one video. So I need to tap the camera button, swipe over to video, and then tap the effects button. I'm going to add one of these fireworks shape effects that can be resized and rotated just like the stickers. Then let's add some text. I can add any of these text styles, and after that, enter my own custom text. Notice that we can also add emojis by selecting the smiley face down here. These also act like stickers in that they can be resized and rotated. So now I've added the animated shape, text, and emoji. Now let's apply a filter to the video. Close the filters, and now I can finally start shooting the video. Tap Done and it loads into the message, where I can then review it and even trim it using the Edit button here. I think this one is ready to send. Lastly, let's apply an emoji. With this option, you can only use the front-facing camera because it uses the face tracking technology to apply and animate the Animoji over your face. So I can select either my Memojis or any of the Animojis. Once I have the one I want, I just need to close the Animoji chooser and record my video. You can also take still shots with Animoji as well. Just remember to choose photo or video when you begin the process. So that's how to apply camera effects to stills or videos in Messages and FaceTime. Next, we'll look at the new Photos app that's available in Messages. Previously in iOS, to send a photo that was already saved in your photo library, you would need to tap the camera icon and then jump into your photos. Now in iOS 12, the Effects button has taken this space. So rather than using the camera button, we now have an iMessage app for photos right here. If your iMessage apps aren't visible, tap the Apps button here to switch between the Apps browser and predictive text above the keyboard. When I tap the Photos iMessage app, we can then swipe through recent photos or tap on All Photos to browse all our moments, media types, and albums. Just tap on an image to view it, and then tap Choose to add it into the message. This new method of sending images in the Messages app will feel foreign at first for those of us that have been used to tapping on the camera icon to send an image or video. But using the Photos button to send from Photos makes more sense than doing that from the camera button, where you can also take a photo. So this might take a bit of getting used to, but it's a positive change in the long run. In iOS 12, the Memories tab in Photos has been replaced by For You. You might recognize For You from the Music app if you're an Apple Music subscriber. Like in the Music app, the For You tab in Photos tries to display items that you're going to be most interested in. Notice on these two different iPhones with different photo libraries, one has a featured Photos image at the top, and the other has a memory at the top. Memories are now included within the For You tab, along with featured photos, sharing suggestions, and shared album activity. Sharing suggestions will recommend people to share your albums with via iCloud photo sharing. To learn more about iCloud photo sharing, take a look at the Photos for iOS tutorial and the iCloud tutorial. You can't fully control what's displayed here in For You. It's meant to be automatic for the most part. You can, however, remove memories and sharing suggestions. To do so, tap on the item and then tap the ellipsis in the upper right, and then delete memory or remove sharing suggestion. Notice that you can also make a sharing suggestion into a memory, or share the photos within a memory. Next up, we'll look at the new search capabilities in Photos on iOS 12. With our photo libraries expanding all the time, finding photos via search rather than scrolling through hundreds or thousands of images is becoming more and more important. iOS can already automatically locate certain objects in a photo, like a mountain or a dog. Photos in iOS 12 now offers search suggestions and the ability to search multiple parameters at once. So let's start with entering mountain in the search field. Notice that as I'm typing, suggestions begin appearing below. So I can just tap the mountain suggestion here. That then displays even more suggestions to combine with the term mountain. Below that are my 77 photos that were found with a mountain in them. And below those are all the images broken down into their moments. Tap See All to view all the moments that contain one or more of the 77 mountain photos. Now let's add the suggested search term snow. That places snow up into the search field alongside mountain, and our results are now down to 12 images. Since we have so few results now, I'm not getting any more search suggestions, but I can still add a parameter manually. I'm going to start typing November, and as I do that, the term gets suggested. Tap, and I'm now viewing the 4 photos of mountains with snow on them that were taken in the month of November. Tap the X over here to reset the search field. Now let's find a person. I'm going to enter the name Tate, and that turns up the 13 photos that he's in. Notice one of the suggestions I'm getting is the term baby. So with one tap on this, I can view all of Tate's baby pictures. Using search in Photos is a great way to locate specific photos, rather than having to search by scrolling through all your images. The Stocks app in iOS 12 has been redesigned and now has business news from the Apple News app built into it. One thing that's obvious right away is that the Stocks app on the iPhone comes with a dark background, but with a white background on the iPad. This is kind of odd and could change before iOS 12 is officially released. This is the first time the Apple Stocks app has been available for the iPad. The watch list is the list of stocks that we can see on the main screen here on the iPhone or in the left-hand column over on the iPad. Tap here to add or remove items from the watch list or adjust their order. If I add Ford to my watch list over on the iPad, notice that this will sync with my list on the iPhone via iCloud. Tap on a stock here in the list to view its performance and details. Notice that we can view the stock's performance for just today, all the way up to 10 years and even all time. Below all the numbers, we can now view Apple News articles on the selected stock. Tap and the article opens up right here in the Stocks app. We can also quickly view all the top stories in Apple Business News by tapping at the bottom of the screen here on the iPhone or at the top of the Stocks column on an iPad. Next up, we'll look at the Voice Memos app, which is also coming to the iPad for the first time. The Voice Memos app in iOS 12 has been redesigned, and for the first time comes on the iPad and Mac. All your voice memos can now sync via iCloud. Voice memos can be great for recording a lecture, meeting, or just notes to yourself. Currently, I have no voice memos. To start recording, simply tap the red record button. So I'll record a voice memo here on the iPhone. After I stop the recording, it's saved automatically and given the name Home since that's the location that I'm at. Tap the name here to change it. I'll call this one VM iPhone. Notice over on the iPad, VM iPhone is available in the voice memos list, and I can play it back. This voice memo is being recorded on my iPhone. Now let's record a voice memo here on the iPad. I'll name this VM iPad, and it's going to sync back to the iPhone as well. Voice memos get listed here with the most recent at the top. To edit a voice memo on the iPhone, select it, tap the ellipsis, and then Edit Recording. The Replace button here is a record button. So if I want to add something to the end of this recording, I can slide over to where I want the new recording to begin and tap the Replace button. Be careful though, because this will record over the original if I were to start at the beginning or in the middle of the recording. To trim a recording, tap the Trim button here on the upper right. Drag the yellow markers in to trim the beginning and end of the recording. Save and the edited voice memo updates on both devices. Voice memos can then be shared via several apps. To share from an iPhone, select the voice memo, tap the ellipsis, or swipe left on the voice memo, tap the ellipsis, and choose Share. Sharing voice memos into a single note in the Notes app that can then have text, images, and markups added can be a great way to take thorough notes. To delete voice memos, swipe left on them in the voice memos list, or tap the Edit button to select more than one to be deleted at once. They're then placed in a recently deleted folder. They will remain here for 30 days until they're automatically removed permanently, unless you either recover them, which will return them back to the main voice memos list, or manually remove them permanently. Thanks for watching the tutorial. For many more tutorials on how to use your Apple devices and software, head to themacu.com. There you can view in-depth video tutorials on Mac and iOS, Safari, Mail, iTunes, iMovie, the Photos app, the Files app for iOS, and many, many more. When starting the free trial, use the code TUBE20 to save 20% off your membership. It's super affordable, and you can watch on themacu.com or using the TMU Tutorials app for Mac or iOS. Thanks again, and now back to the tutorial. The battery section in the Settings app has been enhanced in iOS 12, and now will show much more details as to when your battery is being drained and by what apps. Notice on both the iPad and iPhone we can either view the last 24 hours of battery usage or the last 10 days. Both of these devices haven't been used a lot in the last 24 hours. The only result comes in the last hour or so, where I can see the battery level for each device has decreased. Below that, I can see that the Voice Memos app is the cause of pretty much all the battery drain on both devices. Because over the past hour, I was recording the Voice Memos lesson that you probably just watched. Switch to the last 10 days, and we can see many more apps have affected the battery level over that time. Tap Show Activity to view the amount of time each of those apps has been used over this time period. This is the same data that's being used by the Screen Time feature, which we covered earlier. We can tap on each day here in the battery usage and activity graphs. So if I want to know what was draining the iPad's battery on Wednesday, I can tap on the Wednesday bar, which is going to gray out the rest of the graph, and see below that the Photos app was used most and used the most battery on that day. Tap anywhere off the graph to return to viewing the data for all 10 days. So this is another handy way to review what's draining your battery and how long you're using certain apps. In this lesson, we're going to head into the Siri and Search section of the Settings app. And at the top here, we have Siri Shortcuts. These are quick actions that you can record a custom Siri command for. I have one suggested shortcut at the moment, which is to send Drew S. a message. Suggested shortcuts will appear for things that you do frequently. Tap on all shortcuts and several more options are listed. A good one for me here would be to get email from VIPs in the Mail app. If I ask Siri to do that now, the command is not understood correctly. Get VIP emails. So I need to record a specific Siri shortcut for this command. I'll tap the red button here to start the recording. Get VIP emails. So now when I make that command, email from my VIPs is going to be displayed. Get VIP emails. If you're wondering about VIPs, take a look at the mail tutorials for Mac and iOS. If we jump over to my iPhone 10 now, we can see that I have several more suggested shortcuts here. One is to play this podcast, which I listen to most mornings. If I request this from Siri now, I end up with a song being played from Apple Music. Not at all what I want. Play Molly Haw. So I'm going to record the Siri shortcut. Play Molly Haw. Now, even though the spelling of this command isn't correct as far as the names go, Siri is still going to understand the sound. And when I make the command, will jump me right into this podcast. Play Molly Haw.
Outs are down. The walks have been pretty good. They're hitting for average. But you do look at a lineup in resumes, and it looks like...
In the next lesson, we're going to look at the Shortcuts app, which will let us combine multiple steps to perform a task automatically. These can then be assigned their own Siri shortcut. The new Shortcuts app is available to download from the App Store. When launched, we can either build shortcuts from scratch or download them from the Shortcuts gallery here. If I tap on the Create Shortcut button, I can start adding actions to build a shortcut. There's a large variety of available actions that are associated with different apps or tasks. Compiling two or more actions can then make a shortcut. To get a better look at these, let's jump into the gallery. Here you'll find pre-made shortcuts that can be downloaded to your iPhone or iPad. Here in the Essentials section, we have a Calculate Tip shortcut. Tap and it's going to tell us what it does. Tap the Show Actions button to see exactly how the shortcut was built. This one uses several different actions and variables. So, for what seems like a fairly simple process, this shortcut would be pretty complicated to build on your own. Tap Get Shortcut to download it, and it's added to my library here in the Shortcuts app. Tap on it to run the shortcut. So I'm asked what the total of my bill is. I'll say $65.25. Next, I can choose how much to tip. Tap 18% and the calculation is made for the tip amount and the total. Tap OK and the shortcut closes. Tap on the ellipsis in the upper right of the shortcut, and we can again look at the actions within it. We can also add to or edit these actions. I'm going to add a 23% tip option by tapping the Add New Item button and entering 23%. After this, things get a bit more complicated. Below this tip percentage menu are all the numbers entered as a decimal. Notice that the 23% tip is added down here, but there's no decimal below it. So right now, if I run the shortcut with the 23% tip, I get a crazy high number. So we need to add a number action under the 25% tip figure here. To do so, I'm going to tap on the 20% or 0.2 number item, and then add the shortcut again. It gets added to the very end of the shortcut at the bottom of the page. So I need to tap and drag this up under the 23% number. Once it's in place, then just tap on it to change to 0.23 rather than 0.2. Now if I run the shortcut, it will correctly calculate for a 23% tip. Tap on the Shortcuts Options button here, and we can show this shortcut in the Shortcuts widget, which I will now add to my widget screen. We're also able to add the shortcut to the share sheet that we see when sharing from certain apps. It won't make much sense to add this tip calculator to the share sheet though. Tap Add to Home Screen, and the shortcut can be added as an app icon when shared from here in the Shortcuts app. Now I can just tap on the icon to calculate a tip. Finally, in Shortcut Settings, we can add a Siri shortcut. So I'll record the command Calculate Tip. Now I just need to say that to Siri, and the shortcut's going to run. Calculate Tip. Shortcuts can be deleted from my library by tapping and holding until they wiggle. Select the ones you want to remove and then tap the trash icon. Notice that shortcuts can also be copied or shared with others. There are a ton of different shortcuts available in the gallery, including shortcuts for apps like Calendar, Twitter, Photos, and even one that will instantly let you take a photo by asking Siri. So be sure to browse through here and check them out. In this lesson, we're going to go through a few new features in iOS 12 that don't require their own lesson, but are still useful. First, when using markup, we now have the ability to adjust the opacity and thickness of both markers and the pencil. As I select each one, I just need to tap on it again to bring up the opacity and thickness controls. This thick, textured pencil is a nice additional option. In our color options, we now have a full color palette that can be accessed here. Just tap to set the color. Notice that each tool can have its color set independently. So I end up with a purple pencil, a blue wide marker, and a brown color selected from the color palette for the thin marker. Learn a lot more about using markup in our mini tutorial on markup for both iOS and Mac. Next up, we have bedtime mode in the Do Not Disturb settings. If a Do Not Disturb schedule is activated, we can also turn on bedtime mode. When this is on, I'll see this screen if I pick up my iPhone during bedtime. It's letting me know that bedtime is active, but it doesn't prevent me from unlocking and using the iPhone if I want. But it doesn't display notifications on the lock screen in an attempt to not attract my attention. When bedtime ends, in this case at 7 a.m., the first time I pick up my iPhone in the morning, a good morning message will be seen on the display, and I'll once again be able to view notifications on my lock screen. Next, Apple Music subscribers can now search for song lyrics rather than just titles. As an example, I'll use this Dave Matthews song called Ants Marching. In this song, the title isn't obviously apparent. So if you've heard it somewhere without seeing the title, you might search for a more obvious lyric, like Take These Chances.
Playing under that sable and dreaming, take these chances.
Which previously would not have turned up anything for Dave Matthews.
Be quiet.
But now, when searching in Apple Music, not My Library,
Driving on this highway.
Ants Marching does appear in the results, and it lets me know the search term was found in the lyrics of the song.
No words exchange, no time to exchange when another lit cup.
So this can be really helpful with finding songs like this that might not have an obvious title.
Cut, take these chances. Place them in the box.
Congrats, you've completed the tutorial. You should now be comfortable upgrading to iOS 12 and utilizing the many new features that it offers on both the iPhone and iPad. Again, for a more general look at iOS 12, take a look at the iOS 12 Core Concepts tutorial, which should be ready in October of 2018. For those of you that are also Mac users, check out the What's New and Core Concepts tutorials for macOS Mojave. Thanks for watching, and enjoy using iOS 12 on your iOS devices. Thanks for watching the tutorial. For many more tutorials on how to use your Apple devices and software, head to themacu.com. There you can view in-depth video tutorials on Mac and iOS, Safari, Mail, iTunes, iMovie, the Photos app, the Files app for iOS, and many, many more. When starting the free trial, use the code TUBE20 to save 20% off your membership. It's super affordable, and you can watch on the Macu.com or using the TMU Tutorials app for Mac or iOS.